And we are live. So, welcome to the ninth episode of the BusyBee Boxing Podcast. Here to bring you boxing news and opinions and a bit of banter as well. New viewers, please subscribe to the channel. Support us by giving us a thumbs up. And you can also follow us on Twitter at BusyBee Boxing and on Instagram at BusyBee Boxing as well. On today's show, we want to cover off a few of the relevant current topics. We'll look back at the Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker Heavyweight Unification clash last night. We'll also take a look at the Price Povetkin massacre, and then have a look back at the action from last week where Dillian Whyte defeated a ungamely Lucas Brown. We also cover off some of the kind of Canelo PD developments in the sport. So, without no extra time to waste, let's kick things off. So, we've got the usual suspects on the podcast today. We've got myself, Ao, Idris, Michael, Mega Mike, ready to go, charged up. So, first topic, let's get into it. Anthony Joshua defeated Joseph Parker yesterday by a wide unanimous decision on points. He's now the unified champion of the world, pretty much got all the belts. The only belt he doesn't have is the green WBC belt, currently held by Deontay Wilder. So let's have a look at the fight first, gauge our pod members' opinions. Ao, over to you on this one. What did you make of last night's action?
Yeah, I think it was Joshua did what was required, and it wasn't his best performance. I'll agree. I'll say that it wasn't his best performance, but when you're trying to unify the heavyweight title of the world, and what's on the line, the opponent in front of him, he did what he had to do. He stuck behind the jab, and he didn't. I can't really say that he made any serious mistakes. I can't remember him really getting caught badly or getting wobbled or anything like that. He did what he had to do, and he won pretty much the majority of the round. I agree with the scorecards. There weren't no corruption or no robbery there. It is what it is. And I think styles make fight, and I think that's the reason why. I mean, Joseph Parker nullified Joshua's attributes, because I think this was the first genuine time that Joshua was in front of an opponent who was faster than him. And the referee didn't help as well. I mean, every time the action got a bit meaty, the referee was just jumping in, and I think that was to the benefit of Joshua in certain ways, because what I saw is that when it did get to the inside, Parker was looking dangerous, but for some reason the referee was just quick and ready just to jump in, so he didn't help the situation. So I can't leverage all the blame on Joshua in certain respects. But what I will say is, Parker, my ratings for Parker does go up, because he hadn't fought anybody besides Huey Fury, who I don't really rate anyway. And he's good. He's decent. I mean, he's got good movement, good defense. He's got good speed. He's definitely got a good chin, as they've been hyping up. That's not no facade. And he's a technically decent boxer. And I mean, he'll cause problems. He's not going away, because he's 26. He's fresh, and he's he's got his name known. And I think he'll cause a few heavyweights in the division problems. So basically, I'll just say that credit to Joshua. He did what he had to do, and he moves on.
Hey, quick question. Did you expect going into the fight Joshua to KO Parker? Were you overall impressed with Joshua? Have you seen progress in his development, or do you think Joshua may be slightly plateauing? He's going a bit stale. He's stagnating of late.
I mean, I was expecting I think was expecting someone to at least hit the cameras, at least take a 8 count. But I mean, I think it wasn't his best performance, and I haven't seen no progress. No, but I mean, Joshua's at the pinnacle of boxing at the moment, and there's only so far you can go. And I think it was just two things. I just think Parker's style, being that Parker was blatantly quicker than him, and the referee didn't help Joshua's case to perform. So I don't know. I mean, if it wasn't, I'll hands up, it wasn't his best performance. But I'm not disappointed in Joshua. I'm not gonna sort of say, criticize and say, oh, because you can't have every knockout. I mean, he's knocked out every opponent bar this one. It's taken him 21 fights to have what 4 belts. This guy's moving quick, and he's been fast tracked real quick. And yeah, we have to recognize that he's only had 21 fights, and yeah, consistency is a big thing. But he's been consistent all the way. But maybe this one he just dipped a little bit, which happens all the time. I mean, a striker in football might score 30 goals one season, the next season they might score 20 goals. Do you know what I mean? Because their form just dipped. So if his form dipped in this fight, fair play, but he still got the job done. I mean, I can't really say. Did he well? Do you think? Can you say that Joshua did anything wrong last night?
I wouldn't say he done anything wrong, but I don't think he didn't look spectacular, right? And with Joshua, it's a bit unfair on him because like he's a victim of his own success. Like he's blown out all these guys with devastating KOs, and then anytime he reaches an opponent where he doesn't KO, it's always going to be like compared to his previous fights. But I just thought at times, Ayo, to be honest, and I get your point because on reflection, today I kind of thought about it, and Joshua is being moved quick, and we have to respect. He's only had 21 fights, and he's unified heavyweight champion of the world. So credit to him. You can't really criticize a guy that much. But I just thought last night, and I mentioned this in a post-fight review. He was almost fighting like Vladimir Klitschko. It was very much. It seemed quite robotic. It seemed quite. It seemed quite rigid. Like he was fighting behind a jab. I found that he was closing down Parker well, which I thought was good. But he was like fighting. He was like throwing a jab, and then there wasn't much effective work coming off that. I look back at the fight. I can't remember one effective, eye-catching punch, memorable punch landed by either fighter, and that's really unusual for a Joshua fight. Also, as well, after the fight, Joshua was saying, "Oh, Joseph Parker said that this was going to be a fight, and I turned it into finesse." And I've seen loads of things on Twitter today. So, Eddie Hearn retweeted something today saying, "Oh, this is boxing. It's all about hit and don't get hit." So they're already spinning the rhetoric now that it wasn't a heavyweight clash where it was like blood and thunder. It was all about AJ's boxing style, and that was the big plan all along. Even though going into the fight, Eddie Hearn and AJ were saying they were going to destroy Parker. So I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on reflection. I think he'd done a good professional job. It was controlled, but I would have liked to have seen more. Just on that point that you made, I mean, we all saw after the fight, post-fight, where Joshua was screaming out for Wilder, and he said he'll spark him out. I mean, we've done this. We've had this conversation quite a few times. But if you had to call a winner now, or we've seen their last 2 performances, right? So we saw Wilder against Ortiz and Stavern, and Joshua now against Takam and Parker. If they fought next, who would you be siding with and why?
I'll still side with Joshua to win that fight, and the reason why is because I still believe he's the better technically gifted boxer. I believe that exactly what he did last night. I mean, it wasn't the best of fight, but we have to accept that's boxing. He said a good thing at the end of the fight. A right hand can take you around the block, but a good jab can take you around the world. And we saw that from Klitschko, as you said. He was heavyweight champion for 10 consistent years. That's consistency. And all he did was stick behind the jab and was robotic. And that was his style. I'm not asking for that again. But don't get twisted. I'm not asking for that again. But sometimes against a dangerous opponent, someone who's got better speed than you, like Parker had yesterday, you do have to stick behind the jab and just stick to pretty much the basics. I believe Joshua would win against Wilder simply because he could do that, stick behind the jab. He's bigger. He used his attributes yesterday. He used his attributes really, really well. He was bigger. He had the much longer reach, 82-inch reach, as opposed to I think it was 74 Parker had, and he just used those attributes. And I think he could do the same thing with Wilder. I don't think he's got a longer reach than Wilder, but he's a bigger guy than Wilder. He's got the weight advantage, and he could just outbox, outbox, Wilder easily. Now, if you put it on the flip side and you ask me, okay, Joshua versus Fury, I would say, well, Fury, because Fury could do exactly what Joshua did to Parker last night to Joshua, simply because Fury's the better technically gifted boxer. So that's my opinion, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, 100%. I want to touch on that Fury stuff, and on that note, it's probably best to introduce my man, Mega Mike. Mega, how did you see that fight last night? What did you make of it, and what's your thoughts about a potential matchup with Wilder going forward?
For me, that fight was very, very interesting, and it was kind of an eye opener in regards to the retrospective of the heavyweight division. What I saw yesterday, let's discuss Parker first. Parker fought for me very, very well. I didn't expect him to have that much of a presence in the ring. Having said that, for the heavyweight division, he's pretty small. Small frame. His reach wasn't long enough, and I think as well as he fought in terms of a strategy, just the simplicity of the science in regards to Joshua being the bigger man, heavier, coming forward, stronger, longer reach, height difference. It was just too much, just on the A to B level. I don't know how Parker's going to bode well. If that was Wilder, it would have been an even worse outcome for him. Having said that, he's got very, very good movement, which I respect highly. But I do notice that he keeps his hands down, pretty much all the time. Kind of moves backwards into punches rather than slipping them sideways and stuff, which is quite dangerous. Now, moving on to Joshua, I felt like the weight cut, obviously everyone saw him was pretty lean, he looked good, he was moving quicker. But I don't know, like, do you guys think that was hindering his power, or like, do you think he still got that there, or he just didn't have an opportunity to kind of let that flow? Because for
I,
me, I
I
was looking at it like it was kind of a detriment to him yesterday.
I think his stamina had notably improved yesterday.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was always going to come from the weight cut. But I get your point. I think some of the power was sapped, and I don't know. It's like that explosive edge that we're used to seeing from Joshua. Maybe I don't know. Maybe because he didn't have that weight behind him, he was slightly more apprehensive to go wailing in with punches. I just thought he was too rigid. I thought he was too rigid, Mike. But no, go on. You shoot on. That was
Yeah,
my
he was very rigid, as you said, and he was very apprehensive as well. And I think with the weight advantage that he usually has and that bulkiness, he comes in there, very overzealous, confident, brave, bold, comes forward, knowing that if he whacks you, you're going to feel it. And even if he doesn't get through on the first, second, third punch, after the combinations, one of them is going to get through and then he's going to put you down. Whereas yesterday, he felt like, oh shit, you know what? It's more of a level playing field. Let me stick to what I know. Let me jab. Let me work my way in there. Now, what I saw in that ring yesterday, mate, there's no way AJ beats Wilder, man. He's gonna get flattened, if I'm being honest with you. Like, because that performance there against Wilder, AJ would have slept yesterday, and that's a fact, guaranteed. Wilder's reach is longer, the height difference is there. The way Parker was able to maneuver around the ring, even though he was on the back foot most of it. I just see Wilder taking charge of that situation, and AJ's too stiff. There's no head movement. He's coming forward. He didn't do anything much yesterday. He didn't have to do anything because he was literally just naturally the bigger man. Everything was set in his favor yesterday. But when you're facing someone that's taller, and you it's a chess match like it was yesterday, and they've got a longer reach, they're more imposing, they're stylistically different from you. You can't really control the ring like you were yesterday. You're going to have issues. You're going to have problems. And, where I was saying I tip AJ for the win if he was to face Wilder, now I'm saying Wilder beats AJ, just from that. So, yeah, I'm not really confident going into that fight now, to be honest with you.
No, I definitely agree. I'm 60-40 in favor of Wilder. And to your point, I think you made some great points, Mike. To your point of AJ not really doing much in the ring last night. That's how I felt. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it was controlled and he used his size and reach and stuff like that." But that was blatantly because Joseph Parker was a smaller guy, right? You
Yeah.
can't employ those kind of tactics against a Wilder or a Fury, a guy who's, similar size to you, similar reach and stuff, because he wasn't really doing much. He was only able to almost bully Joseph Parker because he was the bigger guy. And as well, what I did note from last night is I felt Joshua looks uncomfortable when he's fighting from long range. Like, I know people say, "Oh no, but he did land the jab last night, etc., etc." But he looked like he was having difficulty moving from long range close up to like 3/4 range, half range, where like Joshua is very dangerous and he gets off all his work. And
Yeah.
all Joseph Parker was really doing was like a few feints here and there, moving laterally. I didn't even think Parker was doing that much. So to your point where you say Wilder, imagine what Wilder would do. I honestly think that Wilder would take charge of a jab off. I think Anthony Joshua is the better technical boxer. We all know that. But Wilder, when he wants to use his jab, he's
He's
a
got
really good
solid.
jabber. He's a
Yeah,
really good
very
jabber.
solid. Yeah.
So yeah, 100% get that point. Money Mike, let's bring Money Mike in. Money Mike, what was your thoughts on the fight? Are you agreeing with myself and Mega, or are you slightly different? Do you see things slightly different?
No, I agree with both. I mean, it wasn't the most spectacular performance, but at the end of the day, Joshua used his tools. I mean, sometimes you have to win ugly to win a fight. I mean, he's not the first fighter to do them tactics. I mean, look back when Lennox Lewis fought David Tua. It was kind of like the same scenario. Lennox Lewis was a bigger guy. Tua was a smaller guy, quicker, maybe good puncher. Not a bad chin. But yeah, Lewis just kept him at reach of his jab and then took the chances when he did. Done exactly what he had to do. And I think Joshua had his tactics spot on. He knew that he couldn't come in the same way as he did against Takam because it would have been a different story. He would have been slower. He knew that Parker was a smaller guy, good hand speed, not being knocked out. He's got a very good chin. And I thought Parker did well. I mean, I thought Parker did a lot better than what people give credit for. My estimation of Parker went up after that performance. And yeah, I just thought AJ just did what he had to do. Nothing spectacular, just done what he needed to do. Like I said, sometimes you need to win ugly. He's not the first fighter to do them tactics to win a world title, and he won't be the last. He just did what he had to do.
Expanding on what you said, Mike, as well. Sorry, Jay, I know you might have wanted to interject there. With this scenario of like, obviously AJ being on Matchroom, he's got the machine behind him, Eddie Hearn, Sky, the money's rolling in. Obviously, everyone saw what happened with the ref and, all the, echoes around the, circuit right now saying, look, why did the ref mess up the match? Blah, blah, blah. We heard Kyle Froch as well mention a couple of things after the match. But, what were your thoughts on that? Because for me, Parker maybe rocked AJ about twice. Not stone cold, but obviously he could have built with that momentum with the first hit. Like, you know what? I can put a combination together here and see what happens. Maybe turn his screen grey. But I felt like there was a lot of protection from the referee. And, expanding on that, obviously we spoke about the cleanliness of the sport and people being paid off and what's dodgy and da-da-da-da-da. Like, did that come into anyone's mind yesterday, like, into question? Because I was looking at it thinking,
no,
this guy's been paid
Parker
off.
did throw the odd one or two punches, like maybe wobble Joshua, but Joshua was never really in trouble. I mean, he kept Joshua at bay with his jab. He moved inside when needed to. The ref, I don't rate the ref at all. I think he was too quick to jump in and any kind of coming together. He was quick just to get in there. But yeah, it did work in AJ's favour. If Parker was allowed more time to open up Joshua, it might have been a different story. But yeah, apart from that, like I said, I just think AJ just did what he needed to do.
Can I jump in on that referee point? Oh my gosh, that referee was fucking terrible. Like, do you know what, Mega? I completely agree with
straight
you.
off the Eddie Hearn referee
Oh
train.
my gosh! During the fight, I think it was like round 9. I sent a tweet directly to Eddie Hearn and I said, "Look, how much did you put in the brown envelope?" Because it was fucking ridiculous. Anytime Parker came in to do any type of body work, and I'm not saying his body work was super clean, but Mega, to your point, right? There was 1 or 2 occasions where I saw Parker almost charged in, right? A lot of his effective work, he was like literally bum rushing AJ. There was one point in particular in the fight where he bum rushed AJ and AJ was like running backwards. Like he was literally running. Yeah, do you remember that point? He was literally running backwards and he looked very uncomfortable. And then Parker finally caught up with him, landed like I think one clean punch. I think there was a few like sloppy ones in there, and the ref just jumps in. And I'm sitting there thinking, there's absolutely no reason for the ref to jump in. They're just fighting, and he's like stopping them fighting. That ref was embarrassing, seriously. And as well, Ayo, I know you said that you felt the cards were correct. I mean, I felt personally the cards were slightly wide. I had it as a 8-4. I think the cards were like 10-2. All of the cards. I had it as an 8-4, maybe a 7-5. AJ was a clear winner. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like a close 7-5. AJ was a clear winner, but I thought it was an 8-4. And I made the point yesterday after the fight that why the hell would Deontay Wilder want to make the fight in the UK? He sparks AJ out or knocks him down like in every round, he's not going to get the decision. No way is he going to get a decision in the UK against AJ. I don't think there's any fighter on the planet, even if someone like Floyd Mayweather was in the same weight division as AJ, he wouldn't get a decision. Like, it seems like Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, AJ have so much influence in the UK. Getting a judge's decision against it is just not going to happen. If we think back to the Klitschko fight, I personally thought that Klitschko should have been up on the cards up until the kind of point he got stopped. But when the fight got stopped and we saw the cards, AJ was up on 2 out of the 3 cards. So, yeah, I completely agree. Just wanted to call out the ref. He was embarrassing. They said before the fight he had been involved in 92 fights or some nonsense like that. He was way too inexperienced. He clearly wanted to make today's papers, and credit to him, he has. So, yeah, completely agree with you, Meg, on that one.
Yeah.
Idris, let's bring you in. Idris, are you with us? Don't know if Idris is with us. Idris, you there? I don't think Idris is with us. Let's move on. Mike, just coming back to you finally. I'm not sure if you really gave an answer, and that's Money Mike. I'm not sure if you really gave an answer, but how do you see a potential fight going with Joshua and Wilder if they do fight? How do you see that one? Money Mike, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I don't even know because obviously Dillian Whyte's thrown his 2 pence worth into the ring, and it seems like Mr. Eddie Hearn is trying to like promote Dillian Whyte and Wilder. So at the moment, it just seems like there's one big massive merry-go-round. But I was reading today that they're planning to start talks with Wilder sometime next week. But obviously, that's just hearsay. In the day, nothing's decided until contracts are signed and stuff like that. But as for that fight, it has to happen. It has to happen because AJ said for day one he's on a mission to unify. There's only one belt left. So, but they're also saying that Eddie Hearn's not going to bankroll people over the odds to come and beat AJ's opponents. Apparently, he's been paying fighters way over the odds to get them in the ring with AJ, and he's not going to be held to ransom by a Wilder. At the end of the day, if he wants to fight, let him come bring something to the table. If not, they're just going to look past him because obviously Povetkin's now mandatory for his WBA belt. So if he's got to dodge Wilder, he may lose the belt, and then obviously the unification fight, if they do get it on, he may be one belt less when they do meet Wilder. So at the moment, it's just like one massive merry-go-round. But at the end of the day, that's the only fight that should happen now. It's the only fight that anyone wants to see. Wilder, AJ. Cut the bullshit. Just get it on, mate. That's it. Just get it on.
I think Wilder's in a very strong position though. Like, no way is his profile as big as AJ. I mean, AJ's making 10, 15, 20 million per fight. He was rumored to have made around 17.5 million for this fight. And I don't know how much he made off, kind of gates and pay-per-view numbers, but I'm sure pay-per-view numbers would have been strong again. So he, anything north of like 20 million, I guess he would have made. Wilder, however, his last few fight purses, I think they've come in around the kind of $2 million, $3 million mark. So
yeah, I think in the highest arena he's packed out is something like 4,000 or 7,000.
Yeah, Yeah, he's making nowhere near. I mean, he's not doing big numbers in the US, but he's in a very strong negotiating position. Why? Because the mistake is, and Eddie Hearn and AJ don't make too many business mistakes, but they've been shouting out for ages that all they want to do is unify the division. And obviously, there's only one man standing in the way. He's pretty much holding the belt up, so he's in a very strong position. And I think that Deontay Wilder should be paid accordingly. I think if they're looking at terms in terms of splits, he should get more money than Joseph Parker because
Yeah.
it's a bigger fight than AJ Parker. It's potentially a bigger fight than AJ Klitschko. So yeah, I think he should be paid well, but probably a conversation for another day. We'll come back to this topic, but let's move things on because we've been obviously going on for a bit on this. And then let's talk about Price, David Price versus Povetkin. I don't know who wants to start on this. Ayo, we ain't heard from you for a bit. Do you want to touch on what you made of the fight and the after bit with Dillian Whyte saying that Povetkin promised him a fight?
No, it went exactly as I thought it would go. I mean, I knew David Price would get knocked out. It just depended on how viciously it was, and it was a horrible knockout. Let's be honest. I mean, a show real knockout. That knockout was so funny. It was ridiculous. I mean, I'll give Price. I mean, I don't rate Price at all. I mean, remember I've actually seen him live. Remember, we went down to Brentford, down your side, Jay, and
Yeah.
actually seen him live, and he doesn't look spectacular against some journeyman. He didn't even look great live, and in all his fights, I mean, he's heavy-handed. That's all he's got, but he has got no chin, no head movement. Not really any speed. He's just tall, lanky, gangly, and he should quit boxing. David Price should seriously quit boxing because the amount of vicious knockouts he's had, he's gonna start suffering later on in life, and that's real talk there. Povetkin was aggressive. The only thing about Povetkin is that I noticed that he started gassing. That towards what round was it, the fourth or fifth round that the fight got stopped?
Was it the fourth? It might have been the fourth.
No,
Yeah.
no, Price got knocked out in the fifth.
Oh, was it the fifth? Okay.
All right, yeah, no, it wasn't even half distance, and I could see that Povetkin was breathing, and I think the commentator said it. Povetkin looked like he was breathing and everything, and that's probably the reason. That's probably now because he's fully void of PEDs. So but all due to Povetkin, he did what I expected him to do. But I'm not going to dwell on this. I mean, Price really needs to quit boxing. No chin, no attributes to go to the sport. He should just go. He should be a commentator or something like that. Boxing.
How highly, Ayo, do you rate Povetkin? Because I don't watch the guy much, and I'm not his biggest fan because obviously the kind of PED stuff. But now he's off the juice, we kind of assume now. Obviously David Price, he's just a punching bag. But how highly do you rate Povetkin? How much did you read into yesterday's performance? He did gas, but I thought he looked pretty good. He looked, he was doing some good body stuff, and yeah, he wasn't like the average kind of heavyweight. He was certainly elite level. How did you kind of rate him, and how do you think a potential matchup with Dillian Whyte would go?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. It's hard for me to give him any ratings because he's a PED specialist again. He's one of these PED comeback specialists. Do you know what I mean? So I just can't. He looked all right yesterday. Let's be honest. David Price did put him down, and that's not good. If David Price is able to put you down, I mean, yeah, David Price caught him. So the vulnerability is there. He looked aggressive. He looked decent. He did good body work. Good lateral movement and the rest of it. But he's all right, and he is world level. But if you're asking me who would win out of Dillian Whyte and Povetkin, I'll probably go with Whyte. But I would have to say that Whyte has to take it down the stretch based on yesterday's evidence because he was gassing. And I know that Whyte is one heavyweight who can definitely do 12 rounds and not gas. Whyte looked really good in his last fight. We'll get onto that in a sec. But I mean, Whyte definitely has worked on his conditioning. And if Whyte can drag it into sort of the mid rounds, championship rounds, I reckon he has Povetkin.
Interesting, because yeah, Whyte said after the fight that I found it fascinating and probably not believable because Price's body wasn't even on the way to the hospital yet, and Eddie Hearn was looking to whore out his fighters. He was saying, "Oh, yeah, Povetkin, yeah, we'll get him in the ring. We've got someone who can fight Povetkin, Dillian Whyte," and just pushed him into the limelight. And they played that card. But I mean, Dillian Whyte said that Povetkin's promised him a fight. For me, it's a step up from Lucas Brown. You're saying if it goes long, you would back Dillian Whyte. Do you think that Dillian Whyte would be able to take Povetkin's power?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think he can. I mean, but I think he can avoid Povetkin's power. Dillian Whyte's. I think Dillian Whyte's improved from the time he got knocked out against AJ. I can see improvements with Dillian Whyte, and I reckon if he can avoid getting hit clean flush for like 4 or 5 rounds, mid-rounds, championship rounds, he could take him out. And let's be honest, look, Povetkin got put down yesterday by David Price. If Dillian Whyte's not no weakling or anything like that. He's got power himself. If he catches Povetkin, which he's more than capable to do, it could be a different story. So, I hope they do get it on, and I hope that if they do get it on, I am fully backing Dillian Whyte for the win. But as I said, I would say I'm 60-40 on that, because Povetkin is dangerous, he's aggressive, and he is world level. So yeah, unlike Brown is not world level, as we clearly saw in his last as we clearly saw against White. He's not world level, but Povetkin is.
Mega, I don't know if you caught the fight yesterday with Price Povetkin, but if you did, what was your thoughts on it, and what do you think of a potential matchup with Whyte versus Povetkin?
I felt sorry for David Price, to be honest, because he looked like he was fried.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Idris.
Okay, cool. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
It just landed from the moon,
Idris with his spectacular appearance.
Yeah, that first punch from Povetkin literally fried David Price, and I felt so sorry for him, because he was just gazing into the galaxy, like far away, and then Povetkin just bit down on his gum shield and just used all the PEDs in his blood to just give him the super hook. And mate, I've never seen blood coming out of someone's mouth like that in a ring. Like, I really hope he's fine. But in regards to Povetkin, he's not someone I'm looking at as a prospect to shake up the heavyweight division, and coming back from this second drug ban, I believe. He's a user, mate, verified user, mate. Do you get what I'm saying? I see Wilder beating him. I see AJ beating him. I see Dillian Whyte beating him as well. I think AM made some good points about cardio. You could see it by like round 4, round 5. It was breathing like it just ran, Mo Farah's race. So I don't see how he's going to cope with Dillian Whyte, especially as, Dill has been focusing on conditioning now, and he's got heart. And yeah, there's nothing that I see there that's worrying in regards to anyone in the division. To be honest, I'd say he gives someone like Parker a good fight, just because he's small. But yeah, that's it really. Nothing there really, to be honest.
No, I think you made some good points. And on the size as well, like, I think if we look at the heavyweight division today, it's like you've got heavyweights and then you've got super heavyweights.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you've got guys like AJ, Fury, if he comes back, Wilder, although Wilder's not a heavyweight, but just the sheer size of these guys. Like, these guys are like 6'7", 15, 16, 17 stone of pure muscle. They can move as well. Like, they're super heavyweights. And then you've got guys underneath that, like a Parker, a Dillian Whyte, a Povetkin, who would be big guys.
Quick one. But
day,
isn't Wilder
compete?
Isn't Wilder lighter than Parker though?
Yeah, he is. But I mean, in terms of like size,
he's light. He's height. Yeah,
he's stronger than him. He's taller than him. He's a lot rangier and longer than him. So yeah, he uses his size well. And Dillian is a big guy as well.
Yeah. Can I chime in on? Can I just add my 2 cents in on my analysis from the fight?
Yeah, Idris, do you want to start? Because we've covered off the AJ Parker fight. So do you want to start giving your thoughts on that, and then lead into the kind of Price Povetkin, Dillian Whyte?
Okay. All right. Let me go Price Povetkin Dillian because for me that's not really it's not interesting to me. Watching that fight really upset me. Um, Povetkin isn't that great in my opinion. I think Price, like Ayo said, is just washed up, and he needs to think of his life after boxing. He needs to think about that. He's just got no quality, even though he stunned him quite well. I think it was in the third round, right at the end of the round after he got knocked down. Was that the same round? Yeah. I think, yeah. But Dylan White mentioned after the fight saying that all you'd have to have is a good jab to beat Povetkin, and I think when he was saying that he was thinking more from a tactical point where if you just have a good jab, stick behind that for about 4 or 5 rounds, like Ayo mentioned, take him into the middle rounds where he is starting to gas out, you'd be able to get him out of there. And he said it himself. That left hook that he gave Parker, he said, look at Price's left hook that hurt him. My left hook is much, much harder than that. So that would get him out of there. So I think his words were, I'd fuck him up.
Idris, can I ask a question on that though? Can I
Go
say
on.
that? So
Go on, go.
I think I'm in disagreement with the whole pod here because I think Povetkin, I would pick Povetkin to beat Dillian Whyte because I think Dillian Whyte probably looked at that fight and thought, oh well, if Price dropped him, I can drop him. If I fight behind a jab, I can do enough. But Price, as we know, is pretty heavy-handed, right? We've heard the sparring rumors where, well, it's not a rumor, it's been confirmed he dropped AJ. People have said that Price is naturally heavy-handed. So I think he's probably more heavy-handed than Dillian Whyte. But Povetkin, for me, I don't know. Maybe I'm overestimating him from last night. I don't like the guy because he's a PD cheat, but he is quite a technical boxer. Like he was, like you could see him even against a bigger guy. Like he was doing some clever things
But
in there.
I hear what you're saying, but when I was watching, I don't rate David Price at all. I think David Price is at the bottom of the barrel. And even when Povetkin was having some success against Price, Price had some good success as well. And I was saying to myself, if there was someone in there with a bit more about them, they could have hurt Povetkin badly. I don't know where it would have gone, but if someone was just maybe 5-10% better than David Price, I think they would have made it a very close and competitive fight, and wouldn't have ended so quickly. David Price hit him with some good clean shots, before Povetkin dropped him. David Price just has nothing about him. He needed to just knock him out straight. He had no chance, to be fair. I was saying, this is some bullshit. Like, David Price is just a hype man. Do you know what I mean? He's just like a B-Tech Tyson Fury. You're just tall like him. There's nothing about him. But I don't rate David Price. I think Povetkin's good. He is world level and stuff like that. But I'd agree with the other guys. I would go with Dillian Whyte. I think Dillian Whyte's he's got a lot of momentum behind him now, and he's improving every single time you see him. Like every time you see him, he's getting better. But yeah, have I said enough on that?
Yeah, you have. I mean, I'm gonna be controversial. If that fight got made, which I hope it does get made, I think that will be the second toughest fight of Dillian Whyte's career, and I would bet on Povetkin to win. I'm being controversial here. I would bet money, and I'm happy to take a bet on this with any pod member. I would bet Povetkin to stop Dillian Whyte. Any takers?
If it gets made,
no one's sure now.
No. If it gets made, if it gets made, I'll take it. If it gets made, I'll take it. I'll take that bet, Jason. I'm saying it straight up. If it gets made, I'll take it.
Okay, yeah, that's the bet I would have. I think Povetkin has enough power to sleep Dillian Whyte.
Jay, for once, I actually agree with you.
Oh, Money Mike. Yeah, we didn't get your opinion. Money Mike, before Idris, you covered the AJ fight. Money Mike, what was your thoughts on the fight? Would you pick Povetkin to beat Dillian Whyte?
Okay, I'm going to make this very, very brief. I'm going to make this in the same category as Amir Khan and David Hay. David Price should retire. Like I said, watching that fight last night, I thought my kids put on Rocky IV. It was just like a carbon copy for the first 3 rounds. Big, tall giant versus a little small man. And I'm sorry, but the knockout was just like... It was a good knockout. David Price just stood there like a frozen giant, just waiting for the punch to say, like, you know what, my hands are down, just knock me out, just put me out of my misery. He should retire. Povetkin and Dillian Whyte, I think it'll be a good little scrap. I can see that being a remake of Chisora and Dillian Whyte, but I think Povetkin just might edge it with a knockout because Dillian Whyte's not got a good chin, and I could see Dillian Whyte getting dropped early. That's my thoughts.
I could see that happening. I just think Povetkin has enough about him to do enough to hurt Dillian Whyte and punish him. I just like Dillian Whyte's talking about a jab. I think a lot of Povetkin's problems yesterday, and Idris, I think you made a great point. Like David Price caught him with a few shots. He rocked him. Obviously, the rope saved him. If that was 30 seconds, a minute earlier in that round, he probably would have got him out of there. But I just think that Povetkin, like, look at his resume. He's got one, and look, he's been on the PEDs. But in terms of pedigree, he's an Olympic champion, I believe. He's got a very solid resume, although a lot of that is PD influenced. But the way he took out David Price chillingly, like that power, like he's still got it. Whether it's residual effects of the juice he was on or not, he just seems to have that power. And
I can't see Dillian Whyte taking that.
I just think he would. I think he would sleep Dillian Whyte. I think Dillian Whyte probably is sitting there thinking, "Oh, this is easy because David Price is doing it." But styles make fights. David Price is a big guy with a jab. You know, even though he's got a baby chin, you still have to be careful because the guy's got power. Whereas with Dillian Whyte, I feel like Povetkin could just come in and bum rush him. And we also, whilst I admit Dillian Whyte's improved, we all saw the war he went to with Chisora. Now, if someone asked me who's the better fighter, Chisora or Povetkin, that's not debatable. And the shots that Dillian Whyte was getting hit with by Chisora, if he got hit with by Povetkin, he would be sleeping, out, cold, KO, bedtime. So that's just my thoughts on that. But Idris, you shoot on, and obviously it would be great to hear your insight into the AJ fight as well, man.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going on to now. With the AJ Parker fight, and I felt this throughout the whole build-up. I felt this, but I never talked about it just because I wanted to see how the fight played out. But we've talked a lot about PEDs, and I'm gonna segue slightly into it. Obviously, I do believe that this is an opinion. So what was it that you say, Jason? So this is just an opinion. I'm not saying this is a factual thing, but I do believe that AJ has been on PEDs. Obviously, he's never been caught.
Jeez,
and one thing,
disclaimer time.
Yeah, big disclaimer time. Yeah, and the reason why I say this is that when you train, when you're heavy, sometimes when you take certain PEDs, they bulk you up and blah blah. Obviously, when you take certain other PEDs, they trim you down and things like that. But one thing that always remains is that you always maintain the same amount of power. And AJ caught Parker a couple of times yesterday with some flush shots. And one thing I've been thinking about is that when you're coming down in weight, it's the maintenance of that power. And I said, if AJ can carry the same power, can get lighter and carry the same power, I would probably then slightly change my opinion on him and Wilder and go with him to be able to beat Wilder. Just for the simple fact that AJ to me looked really good yesterday in terms of his physique and let's say his ring generalship and just being in the middle of the ring and trying to dictate things. But I just didn't think he had enough pop in his shots. And the same for Parker. I didn't think these guys hit as hard as they were hitting in their previous fights. And I thought AJ won the fight clearly. I thought the referee ruined the fight. Like, I hated watching the fight yesterday. Like, I'll be honest, guys. Like, I hated it. And I was so glad I went to the local to go watch it rather than paying for it. Because for me, the referee ruined it. Like, any time there was a bus stop in, was it round three or four where they were both on the ropes, absolutely swinging at each other, and the referee flipping jumped in. Let them work it out. I felt, and this is what I suggest actually, I think fundamentally, AJ looked like he's improved a lot. So he looks like his jab's a lot more crisp. He looks like he's got more skill, but it looks like well, let me take that back. It's not like he's got more skill. It looks like his fundamentals are fully there now. So it looks like the base is there. And I think he has to grow from that now. Because I did agree with you when he said, oh, AJ is limited and things like that. Because watching it, I was thinking, AJ, man, like, do some other stuff. Like, do some sidestep, move in and out quicker. Like, do you know what I mean? Be more dynamic in your movement and throw a variety of punches. And it was very basic. The way he beat Parker was very basic, just because Parker didn't have enough enough about him either to hurt AJ really and get AJ out of there. But I just thought gone.
Sorry, can I ask you a question on that? And you made a great
Go on.
point. There was something on Twitter today where it said apparently, and I don't know if this is true, but I guess it is. In the build up to this fight, AJ has been working with Vladimir Klitschko on certain punches. Did you see a Vladimir Klitschko-esque performance in AJ last night? I.e.,
Yes.
pretty
Very.
robotic,
Yes.
predictable, solid. He looked like Klitschko in there yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah, and this is what I'm trying to say. Like, I think AJ is good. Yeah, I do think he's good, and I think when we're talking about fundamental boxing, and we're not talking about the skill, we're just talking about the fundamentals, what you've learned, and then going into the ring and executing the things you have learned. So someone can watch you and go, okay, I can see this person has worked on this. Yeah, and watching the fight yesterday, I can see that he's worked a lot on his jab. I can see he's worked on a lot on him having a high guard and being good defensively. Do you understand? But I just felt like it was very, like you said, robotic. It wasn't like, it wasn't dynamic, man. And like AJ, when he first came, he was quite explosive. He just swing shots, but he swing a lot of shots, but have a variety of a lot of shots. Do you know what I mean? But now it's like, yesterday was just a bit dry. It was just dry. It was nothing. There was nothing exciting about it. And it's funny if the case is he did fight, he did work on stuff with Vladimir, that he would go and win on points and just out jab Parker. Do you know what I mean? It makes perfect sense.
No, exactly. It looked like a young version of Klitschko in there, where everything was very systematic and it was rigid, and there wasn't much risk taking. It was use your size. There was even a bit of jab grab in there, wasn't there? When Parker charged forward, he was getting him in headlocks and putting his weight on him. It was very much. It was like I was watching Vladimir Klitschko from 5 years ago. So I get that point.
Yeah, and I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy AJ's style at all.
No,
it wasn't exciting. The fight was quite boring to watch, and Parker was by far more exciting. With all the stupid jerking he was doing, he was a lot more excited than AJ was. And then when AJ was talking to him, and I think was it round 4 or 5 when he was swinging his arm, like his right arm, put in the air, like doing like a helicopter with his arm, like to say, "Look, I'm going to hit you with this." And I was thinking, you still didn't throw it. You done all that shenanigans, and you still didn't throw it. You're talking all this rubbish to Parker. I'm thinking, personally, when I was looking at that fight, I was thinking, you can go and hurt Parker badly. I personally believe if the Wilder that fought Ortiz was fighting Parker last night, he would have got him out of there in 4 or 5 rounds. He would have sparked him. I honestly believe that. I honestly believe that. And the reason why I'm more in favor of Wilder now, even though I don't agree with Wilder's comments on the whole body thing, I don't know if you guys have seen that on the Breakfast Club.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I think that's disgusting. Why would you say such a thing?
It wasn't.
Do you know what I mean? And Tony Bow, you made a good point about these people. These guys are going home to their kids and stuff, and you're talking about having a body, and it's disgusting. But anyway, Wilder with a killer instinct like that, if he had fought Parker yesterday, he would have hurt him bad. He would have got him out of there. And I think from a technical and a fundamental point of view, Joshua probably is I'm not going to say he's the slight favourite, but I'm just going to say he looks like he's more refined now. Like he'd be able to go through 12 rounds and pace himself and just outbox his opponent rather than be explosive and just get them out of there in 4 or 5 rounds. And I think that is what I think he's building up to the Wilder fight with this performance. That's what I think. I'm thinking he doesn't want to take any risks against Wilder, so he wants to box smart and use the boxing skill to beat Wilder, rather than I'm gonna go and we're gonna gunsling it and see who gets the first punch in. I'm gonna use skill. I'm gonna outbox you, and that's what it looked like to me yesterday, and that's why I was disappointed, because I was thinking, no, take Parker out of there, mate. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys agree. Get him out of there.
No, I agree. I
make
agree.
a statement.
I agree, Idris. That's how I felt looking at his performance. And, that comment where he said, "Oh, I'll spark him out," that was just to kind of play to the crowd and that. But I agree. Maybe, working with Vladimir Klitschko and adopting his safety first style, because this is not the first time, right? We saw it, parts of it in the Takam fight. Now we've seen it again in the Parker fight. The only thing I'd say, and question for you, Idris, is if he went into that fight with Wilder, because we all know he's a better boxer from a fundamental point of view. But if
Yeah.
he went into that fight against Wilder trying to keep it long, trying to fight behind the jab, we've also seen Wilder, to his credit, he's not the best boxer, but Wilder's got a good jab and he knows
Yeah,
how to
and
use it, and he moves pretty well.
yeah, and the things we have to take into consideration from a boxing point of view, Ortiz is a better boxer than Joshua. Do you know what I mean? So from that point of view, he would have been in a ring with someone who's a better boxer than Joshua. So from that point of view, he'd be able to maybe find a way around the jab and the metronome of Joshua's newfound Klitschko style to make it a bit.
Sorry, go on.
Go on.
Sorry. Go on, finish it. Just
Yeah. So I do think it's a very interesting fight, and I think Joshua is looking at the Wilder fight, and that's why he's adopted this style. I don't think it's a coincidence that he's looked like this in these last couple of fights. But I don't know who would win. But I do think that he didn't carry the same power that he has had.
Okay, put it on the flip side, yeah. Supposing AJ went in there all guns blazing and he got knocked out and lost.
Then we're talking about Wilder fighting Parker.
But obviously AJ had a lot to lose last night more than Parker. So in one aspect, you can understand why AJ fought that fight, because in the day he didn't know Parker. Parker was unpredictable. He's not really knocked out anyone big. He's gone distance, which AJ hasn't. Everyone's talking about AJ gassing. He's made a statement by coming in a lot lighter than he has done in the last 4 years, his previous 6 fights. So the pressure was on him. So I think, considering what he had to do last night, I just think he just done what he had to do. And with Wilder in the back of his mind, also knowing that Wilder wasn't there, yes, I was the biggest one to say yes, that AJ's got to put a statement out to Wilder, because at the moment Wilder's the one with all the momentum and AJ's got to put out a statement. But considering on how things developed with all the madness about Wilder not coming, I just thought AJ just did what he had to do. Nothing spectacular. He knew that Parker was going to be fast, small, nimble. He's gone the distance before 4 times. So he was unknown for AJ. But I thought, like I said, it wasn't the best fight of his performance, but I think he done enough to win the fight.
I hear you, and I agree that he done more than enough to win the fight. I don't think Parker done enough, fought enough. But what I'm saying is, when you got to round 6, I was thinking to myself, Parker's not going to be able to hurt AJ. I got to round 6 and I said to myself, this guy is not stopping AJ. He's not getting him out of there. There's no way. And I don't know if you guys felt the same. And I'm actually asking, did you guys feel that Parker could stop AJ? From round 6 onwards, did you think Parker could stop AJ?
No, AJ was totally in control of that fight.
Exactly. So when he got to round 6 and he's thinking, well, this guy can't stop me. I'm outboxing him. So I can be a bit more adventurous in terms of showing
one lucky punch. Everyone's got a puncher's chance.
I completely agree with you. But what I'm trying to say is when I've boxed and I was fighting someone that I felt, I'm better than this guy. Like, I'm 100% better than this guy. Yeah. It don't matter what weight category you are. One punch could change the fight. It doesn't matter what weight category you are. But what I'm saying is, when you feel that you're the better fighter, when you feel that you're the bigger, stronger man, which he was by far, come round 6, you're like, I'm already up on the cards. This guy isn't going to hurt me enough to get me out of there. There's always the risk. It's heavyweight boxing. Let's admit that. But show a bit more adventure. Be a bit more, clinical in your performance. I'm not saying he has to stop him. I'm just saying put him on his arse. Do you know what I mean? Hit him with a couple of good shots that makes Parker go, you know what? I'm running for the rest of the fight now. I'm not even going to come near you. Yeah? Do something like that. Parker was still thinking, I've kind of got, even though he knew he was out of his depth, he was like, I can still keep jabbing and maybe I might be able to somehow nick this on points if I just keep throwing enough punches. But AJ, we all saw it. AJ was the bigger, stronger, the better fighter in there. When you got to round 6, show that you're the world champion. Yeah, we always talk about when a guy comes into your country to try to take your titles, he's got to beat you emphatically. Well, we got to round 6 kind of feeling AJ is going to win this at least on points. Make a statement, hit him, like fucking hit him. And that's what frustrated me so much. It was just, I was thinking
No,
AJ
that's
had
a fair
more.
point. No, fair point. Fair point.
Yeah, I think AJ had more in there. And in a way,
he could a bit more adventurous later rounds.
yeah, like just, especially, and he could have gone, he could have said,
let a few go.
and what he could have done, he'd been more tactical with it. Say, round 6 to round 9, I'm going to be a bit more adventurous, throw a bit more punches, see if I can get him out of there, or just, really hurt him. And if by round 9 he's still in there, I'll just box my way to the victory. But there was none of that step up in gears throughout the whole fight. Like, let's be honest, like there wasn't a round where you went, right, AJ's on him now, like AJ can get him out. You didn't feel that at all. And that's what I was watching it thinking, when AJ sparks a guy out, there's a point that you go, okay, he's going for it now. There was no change of gears, man. And I just thought that was a bit of a letdown, man. And don't get me wrong, I think tactically, from a tactical point of view, that'll work well against Wilder. But again, you went in against Wilder, man. You were in against a guy who's much, much smaller. Did you see the thing on Twitter when they showed AJ standing next to Parker in the ring? How much bigger AJ was than Parker. Like, he was your son, man. Like, just beat him up.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah, like, and maybe I'm being a bit foolish here because it is heavyweight boxing and one punch can change the fight. But you get to round 6 and you would have felt the real strength of your opponent, because in the first 6 rounds is when you have the most energy and the most strength. And even when you get your second wind, it's not quite the same as your first wind. Do you know what I mean? So in the first 6 rounds, AJ would have felt enough from Parker to go, okay, I've got to still stay wary because he hits me hard. I didn't see that at all.
No, I get that point.
Yeah.
Just so staying on this topic, bringing in AO because we ain't heard from you for a bit. AO, obviously Fury made some comments post fight regarding Anthony Joshua, as Idris said, being a bit limited. And probably was indicating that he would be easy work. I mean, we all know the Fury Joshua fight is fantasy stuff at present because Fury, hasn't got a promoter and hasn't got a fight date. But if we use the Fury against Klitschko as like a judge, do you think that version of Fury would, make Anthony Joshua look pretty silly, or do you think Anthony Joshua could fight his new style behind the jab and get Fury out of the ring and knock him out?
No, I reckon that Fury would fight behind the jab and outbox Anthony Joshua. I honestly believe that Fury is the better technical boxer than Joshua. The big unknown is what does Fury look like when he comes back? Yeah. I mean, that's the problem, because he's had time out. He's been overweight. He hasn't, how's he gonna look when he comes back? I mean, take Ricky Hatton for example. Ricky Hatton retired, had years out, came back, and he wasn't the same, was he? Look what happened to him against Sechenko or whatever the guy's name was. So when you've had that long a layoff out, you haven't gone through the training, you haven't gone through the rigmarole of being a boxer, you ain't gonna come back 100% the same. All those beers, all that coke you've been sniffing catches up with you at some point. So it all depends on how Fury comes back. But if he gets to the level that he was against Klitschko, he will outbox Joshua. And to be honest with you, it's going to be a very boring fight, pretty similar to what we saw last night, because it will just be both guys fighting behind the jab, and it's whoever who lands the most jabs will win the fight. That's pretty much how it will be. So it ain't going to be. I don't think we'll see a knockout in that fight per se. There's a chance if someone lands, but I doubt we'll see a knockout. It will be a very, very boring fight. But if it did get to, if Fury can get back to the level that he was, then I honestly believe he outboxes Joshua.
Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking about that fight in my head. I think the only way for me, if Anthony Joshua fights in this new way, kind of behind the jab, very much Vladimir Klitschko-esque, very efficient, very rigid, then we will just see a repeat. If Fury comes back at a decent level, we'll see a repeat of what Fury done to Klitschko. I think any kind of success from AJ would be just bum rushing Fury and just making him feel very uncomfortable. How he done to Klitschko to try and
And I
get
mean,
success.
just to elaborate on that point, because Idris, you made some good points. But one thing I will say is that, of course, he was, he knew by round 6, that, maybe, or midway through the fight, that, he was winning the fight, and, he was just doing the basic things, and the basic things basically won in the fight. So personally, to me, I wouldn't take the risk. I wouldn't open up and take the risk and risk getting caught and, start letting my hands go. If you know that the basics and the jab is winning you the fight, you know what? I know as a spectator, we want to see more, but sometimes, Klitschko did it for 10 years and he was champion for 10 years. I'm not saying that I want that, but sometimes when you're in with a dangerous opponent, when they did get close, I felt that Parker was more aggressive on the inside, and
Yeah, I agree.
AJ didn't look too comfortable. You can see a couple of times him looking to the ref saying, "What was that?" Blah blah blah. But Parker, I think, as I said before, this is the first opponent that was clearly faster than AJ, and it made him uncomfortable. The referee didn't help, so I think he did the smart thing by not taking any risks and just like sticking behind a jab and doing that.
But can I say something to that, AR?
Yeah,
when you get into there, and you guys have just mentioned it about him fighting Fury. If you, from a technical point, if Fury's a better boxer than him, what happens when you fight someone who is a better boxer than you? What is your change of gears? Where's your ability to go, okay, this isn't working, your tactical change? The reason why Klitschko was so good for so long was because he was by far the best boxer. He never fought anyone who was a better boxer than him. He might have fought guys here and there who were stronger than him, who had a bigger punch, but he always had that way because he just had better skill than them. But what I'm saying is AJ's in a position now where he's going to be fighting a couple of guys. Dillian Whyte's improving every time he fights. We're saying that Fury's a better boxer than AJ. And from my perspective, Wilder's has got so much of an X factor, and he's got that equalizer with that right hand, that AJ's got to find his way of going up through the gears, showing that. And when he's fighting someone who's not as good a boxer than him, who's a lot smaller than him, who's nowhere near as strong as him, I'm not saying that he had to go gun-ho against Parker. I'm just saying that, okay, let's see that change in gears. Let's see that you can switch it up. And do you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I want to see and I'm not an AJ fanboy, but I want to see more from him. I would have loved to have seen more from him last night. Not take too many risks. For about 2-3 rounds, switch up the gears. Okay, I got more in the tank. I could go up a couple of levels. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to be the undisputed, if you're going to unify the division, you've got to change gears, man, because Fury's coming for you. Wilder's certainly coming for you. And Dillian Whyte is improving every time.
Can I just say something? If you cast your mind back to Fury versus Klitschko, I don't actually remember that being such a great fight.
It was a shit fight. It was a horrible fight.
It was a horrible fight. Yes, you're absolutely right. That was a horrible fight. But
Klitschko barely threw any punches.
Any punches, and Tyson just jabbed him off and just did the better work, and he won. But it was a horrible fight to watch because nothing really exciting happened. That's pretty much how it was. I mean, styles make fight, and I think what happened last night was partly down to the referee, because we have to understand that the referee didn't help AJ on the performance factor, because the referee was just jumping in whenever Parker had any success, jumped in whenever they got close, and they were trading off and swinging. The referee just separated. I don't know what the referee was trained on, to be honest with you. Exactly. So we have to actually put that factor in, not forget that factor that the referee didn't help AJ or Parker.
Apparently he was a cricket referee.
There you go. He's a cricket referee, so you stick to cricket, mate. But I mean, I would say personally, for me, if I was AJ and I was winning the fight that way, I would have just said, you know what, I'll live to fight another day. I'm taking home 17 million from this fight. Let me keep my marbles intact and walk away from this. These guys will come and pay to watch me again. I'm at the pinnacle of boxing, and that's the reality of what it is at the moment. AJ is calling the shots in boxing. I mean, the other point you guys made earlier in the podcast. Sorry for rambling on here, but I mean, and I have to disagree with you on this one, Jay, when you said, I think Wilder has the cards in his hands. I don't believe that. I think that AJ has all the cards in his hand. Nobody knows Wilder in the UK really, and he's not really that. He's not selling out arenas in America. Wilder's calling out AJ because of the money that AJ brings. AJ's selling out stadiums time, but AJ can't even fight in the O2 no more. He's too big for. He's actually got too big for the O2. He's a stadium fighter. So I mean, all the cards is in AJ's hands. He's got all the belts. Wilder has to come over to the UK and take those belts from AJ. Why should the British public have to go all the way to America to go fight Wilder? Wilder's definitely not the A side. Definitely not the A side.
No, he's definitely. I agree with that point. He's definitely not the A side. Um, and I get the point that Joshua is the bigger fighter in terms of profile and stuff. I just think the position that Eddie Hearn and Joshua have put themselves in, where they've clearly outlined what they want to unify the belts. There's only one person that can help them do that, and that's Wilder. All roads lead to Wilder because no one wants to see Joshua versus Gerald Miller. No one wants to see. Really, do we really want to see Joshua versus Dillian Whyte again rematch? We don't. Or Povetkin. We only want to see the Wilder match. So that's why I think Wilder's in a semi-strong negotiating position because he knows that's the fight that they want. So he can, play it a bit tough. But I just wanted to raise one point before we move on, and conscious that Mega Mike hasn't spoke for a bit, so maybe you can lead us into the next topic, Mega. But just on AJ, if he's going to adopt this new style, and I raised this point yesterday in the post-fight review, if he's going to adopt this new kind of safety-first approach where he's fighting very much like a Vladimir Klitschko and not taking risks, do we see his, how can I put it, public profile, popularity slightly decreasing? Because the point I'm trying to make here, AJ is not a Floyd Mayweather in terms of personality. He doesn't sell his fights outside of the ring. He sells his fights inside of the ring. People want to go and see AJ because he's this devastating knockout artist who, you expect him to make, light work of most of his opponents, whoever he's facing. If he then reverts to a more Klitschko style, do we see then like his popularity? And maybe this is a bit of a knee jerk reaction off last night's fight, but is he not the does he maintain that level of popularity he has when he's packing out 80,000, 90,000 in Cardiff and Wembley? I just wanted to get everyone's thoughts on that before we move.
Can I go first, please?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I watched the AJ Klitschko fight at my friend's house, so it was just a limited group. It wasn't really boxing aficionados who knew much about it. But when I watched it with them, they were so excited. Oh my God, he knocked him out. Oh my God, how could he punch him? So these were girls. Their reactions was and some of them were like, oh my God, he hit so hard, blah blah. Then watching the fight again watching the fight with a more diverse crowd in a pub, where it was there was queues outside, people trying to get in the pub. There were girls in there who were like, "Oh, this is so boring. Why isn't anyone falling? Why isn't anyone not getting knocked out?" The girls weren't really as interested, and some of the guys in there were getting frustrated, not just because the referee fucking up the fight, but apologies for the swearing, but messing up the fight. But also, they were saying, "Oh, get him out of there, Joshua! Get him out of there! Just get him out!" People's reactions were from us, from a boxing standpoint, we're gonna just watch the boxing fight, and if the knockout comes, we're just gonna appreciate the fight. Whereas people who are more casual fans, they want to see a bit more excitement. Now, I don't know if this is going to directly translate to AJ's popularity, but I would say maybe the more casual fan, if 3 or 4 fights down the line, AJ's not knocking guys out, they might switch off a bit and just be like, oh, AJ won. But they wouldn't have really chimed in or tuned in to watch an AJ fight. And maybe that might affect box office sales or people actually turning up to watch at the stadiums. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, it was just definitely a thought because, as I said, he's not, Mayweather's popularity was based on 2 things, right? His personality outside the ring. He was seen to be a quite outlandish, extrovert, obnoxious guy who was playing the kind of bad cop routine. It wasn't his performances in the ring like, because people are only tuning in to see his personality and to see him potentially lose. That's it. So Joshua, on the flip side, has based most of his success, box office numbers, on, you know, excitement in the ring. And if that goes, what's left? That's the point I was trying to make. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Let's move on. I think Mega Mike is dropping off. So, Money Mike, do you want to lead us into the next topic, which is, I know we've talked about him a bit tonight, but do you want to talk about briefly Dillian Whyte against Lucas Brown last week? And bless you. What your thoughts on the fight were?
My thoughts on Dillian Whyte. Again, nothing spectacular. Lucas Brown is a nobody. I'm still trying to work out how on earth he become WBA champion. But yeah, it's just going to be a quick one. Lucas Brown shouldn't even be in the heavyweight division at the moment. Dillian Whyte just a stepping stone. Dillian Whyte versus Wilder or Dillian Whyte versus Povetkin, much better. That's really my thoughts on Dillian Whyte last week.
Hey, what were your thoughts on the fight? I mean, Lucas Brown, well, he wasn't on the juice for one, and two, his conditioning was awful. I thought his performance was shambolic. But I mean, what were your thoughts on the fight last week?
Yeah, I mean, Lucas Brown. I knew from the get go when the weigh-in happened that Lucas Brown was going to win the fight. He hadn't trained. You could see that he hadn't trained for the fight. He came in overweight. I believe that when the fighter comes in above 8.5 stone, unless you're 7'2", mate, something wrong. There's something going on there. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, like what right does he have to come being 6'5" or whatnot, or whatever he is, to come in at 19 stone? That just indicates that you haven't trained. And you even said it in your post fight, in your pre-build up, that what you've seen of Lucas Brown is that he's a limited boxer, and he is limited because all he's limited to do is you just went into the fight looking for one punch. And let's be honest, like Dillian Whyte isn't a world raiser or whatever, or like, you know, we get all excited about Dillian Whyte. You know, Dillian Whyte's is a good boxer who I would say is just entering world level. But Lucas Brown, I mean, threw away that fight by not having hunger, not having desire, and not having the commitment that was required to obviously go into a world level fight. It's as simple as that. I mean, I'm not taking away what Dillian Whyte did, because Dillian Whyte did everything right. I mean, the knockout was spectacular. I mean, he stuck behind the jab. He landed clean a lot of times. I mean, I'm not discrediting, and the thing is that's what's kind of bad, because he's gonna get discredited for his performance because Lucas Brown was so bad. Like, Lucas Brown was obviously not prepared, so people are gonna take away, not give him as much credit as he was due. But you know, Dillian Whyte did everything right, and he produced a showroom knockout. He produced a performance which is all he could do, and that's pretty much all I've got to say about that, really.
I guess from that analysis, you don't want to see Lucas Brown back in the ring. I mean, he looked awful, right? The footwork wasn't there. He was eating jabs all night. The timing was off. He was just so predictable. It was just bad. And to be honest, he got knocked out. He went down pretty hard, didn't he? I mean, are you saying that you don't want to see him back in the ring?
I don't want to see him back in the ring, man. I mean, he just needs to go back. He needs to go back to Australia and I don't know, do commentary or something, another commentator in Australia or something. I don't know, but he just doesn't need to be back in the ring. Another former PED specialist as well. Even in the build up, you could tell he even baited out that he's taking PEDs. Lovely, because what did he do? He started saying that Clenbuterol gives you the
face off.
Yeah, the handshakes and all of that, and offers, and then White came back and said, "Oh, so you know about that? Yeah, you see, he knows about all of." Remember that?
yeah, that was funny. Yeah, I was laughing.
No, I mean, so like, let's just let Lucas Brown be a doorman in Australia or do something. Just let him do what he has to do, man. He doesn't need to be boxing.
Idris, what were your thoughts on the fight, man?
Bro, let's move on, man.
we covered it. Unanimously agree that we want to see Lucas Brown return to a safer occupation, i.e., doorman, bouncer, security guard for celebrities.
I don't even know the way he got dropped, mate. Some guys might take some guys might take their chances at the door, mate.
Maybe Lucas Brown and David Price have a fight together. That'd be quite good.
That would be a good battle. Yeah, they should make that fight, and basically whoever loses retires for good. But I'll probably suspect that David Price will get flattened out again.
Yeah, I think Lucas will do Price.
Yeah, I think Lucas Brown will do Price, to be fair. Let's move on. So one of the topics that we were going to cover, so it's two conversations really. So firstly, a quick update on Project Canelo or Clenbuterol-Elo. So a quick update on that subject, and then a wider discussion on PDs, which we originally done a couple of weeks ago, but for some reason didn't record through. So yeah, just a quick update on Canelo. So obviously we know a week ago he allegedly or apparently failed his second drug test. There are some rumors going around on the internet that the levels in this test were way and above where they should have been from that kind of Mexican meat contamination story. So we're getting some of those stories coming out of Nevada and stuff. But the output of that is he has been suspended temporarily until April the 10th, until this hearing where apparently Nevada State are going to look to push for a ban. They're looking at potentially between anything from 6 months all the way up to 2 years. Apparently, they're pushing for at least a minimum of a year. So, a few developments on the Clenbuterol-Elo case. Idris, are obviously expert.
Yeah, I wish.
Our chief PD correspondent. What do you make of the latest goings on in this development, especially the fact now that he's failed a second test, and apparently we're hearing. I've heard conflicting stories. Dan Raphael of ESPN came out and said, "Oh, the levels were low. He's absolutely fine." I'm hearing from other sources that the levels were way above where they needed to be. Clearly, obviously, Nevada probably think that because they've suspended him and they're pushing for a ban apparently. So what do you make of what's going on, Idris, and just the kind of wider PD situation in the sport?
Okay, so for those who don't know, when you have an A and B sample, what it is, the A sample and the B sample is just half of one sample. So they take one half and put it into, what's it called? What's the little test tube called? Into the little test tube. And then they take the other half and put it into another test tube, and they just label it A and B.
Is that the same? Idris, sorry, I'm ignorant. Is that the same sample split?
Yeah, they just split one sample, put one in the A and put one in the B. So what happens is when you have been tested, they test the A sample, and whatever is found in the A sample, if you've been caught on something, what they expect to find in the B sample is either if your B sample comes back clear, then you are then cleared, because that means it's not in your system or what have you. But if your B sample comes back to have the same amounts of what you had before, or even traces of it, it means that you have definitely been taking something. Do you understand? So if you take a P test, it's just one test. But they just label it A and B. But it's the same from the same P. Do you guys understand? So when you do get caught and the B sample comes back positive, you're blatantly on something. Because what it is, if they say they're only finding trace elements, the trace elements should have disappeared then. Because the B sample is usually tested, I think, 2 or 3 months after the A sample's tested. Do you guys understand? So they never test them straight away. They always give off a cooling off period. And that's how they usually do the A and B sample testing. So when the fact that Canelo has been caught and the B samples come back positive, even if it's just a trace amount, it's a very, 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 very bad sign. It's a very bad sign. But one of the things I wanted to say about this is that I'm of the thinking all these top men, regardless of your sport, are on PEDs. I've sent you a lot of the videos on Victor Conte and what he's been saying, and him talking about Mayweather and things like that. Obviously, my thing with PEDs, especially in a sport, a combat sport, it's scary because you could kill a man. Do you know what I mean? But Canelo has been taking stuff. I'm not trying to hear nothing about me. You're a cheat. Yeah. But again, Triple G just hasn't been caught. That's how I look at it. I'm not gonna sit there and go, oh well, Triple G's clean. I'm just saying Triple G just hasn't been caught. Do you understand? And it's a shame. It's a big shame. Maybe they just didn't pay enough. De La Hoya just didn't pay enough to the tester or to certain people within the system to not be exposed. Because that's how it happens. It's all cover-ups. It's all cover-ups.
Idris, can I make a point? What scares me, and you made a great point on combat sports. This is not, athletics where, if you win a race, it's a financial consequence, right? The winner who's doped up gets a sponsorship deal, and the person who comes third or fourth who's clean doesn't. This is, as you said, playing with someone's life. So potentially, you could say someone who's under the influence of PD, it's a manslaughter murder case potentially if they kill somebody. But
that's what Bellew said. That's what Bellew said. It's
exactly
manslaughter.
Exactly, because you're knowingly taking substances which can do damage. What's the difference between that and what Margarito done with his plastering his gloves to hurt Cotto? Well, to potentially hurt Mosley. But the thing that I find quite puzzling is the whole Golden Boy reaction to this. I mean, Canelo has been sparring. I've seen some stuff on Twitter this week where he's been sparring. They've released videos of him on the heavy bag. They're just acting like nothing's happened. It's actually like pretty frightening for Canelo, who we could say is Canelo the biggest name in boxing, like minus Mayweather and Pacquiao. It's him and Joshua, right? You would say the biggest names, and like he's just acting like nothing's happening. It just amazes me. It just amazes me. I just think it's crazy. But it's interesting to hear about the A and B sample. So what you're basically saying.
So let me just go through a step by step. So a tester will come into your house or wherever it may be, wherever you said that you're going to be, and they'll take one urine sample, and then what they'll do is just put a urine sample in one, the urine sample in one like little tube, and they'll split it in half and put the same urine sample in another tube, and then they just label it A and B. And that is it. And then what they do is they go and put them in the fridge or in the freezer. And that's it. And they'll test it. They'll just test the A samples, all the A samples that they've collected. They'll just test it. And then if there's any discrepancies that come up, obviously this then gets notified and blah, 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 blah. Oh, this person's taken this. This is what we found. And then if something is to be found. So I know this is what happens within athletics. So obviously, I think because of boxing's timelines, obviously the Canelo Triple G fight is coming up soon. The timeline is probably shortened. And that's probably why they've still found things within Canelo's B sample and why they're saying the amounts are high or there's still trace elements in it, whether it's high or low. But within athletics, after the A sample's tested, they then test the B sample. I think it's 3 to 6 months later. So what will happen is you'll get a temporary suspension as an athlete. You'll get a temporary suspension for 3 to 6 months while they're waiting for the time period to elapse for them to then go and test your B sample. So obviously with Canelo, the boxing window is a lot shorter. They've had to test his B sample a lot sooner. So that's probably why there's still stuff in there. And if they tested it in 3 months' time, there'd probably be nothing found, and then he'd probably be cleared. So so that's me just clarifying the A and B for you.
I get that. So if just your opinion on this. So if it's found that, as you said, he's still got these amounts in his B sample that are way higher than where they kind of needed to be for this Mexican meat cover-up.
Yeah, that's unusual to me that it's gone up, but yeah. But
Yeah,
sometimes
it may
it's
just be like,
contaminant.
yeah, it may just be like internet rumors or that or something. But clearly
Yeah,
something's happened for Nevada to push for a suspension. As you said, I guess by default they would want a suspension anyway to get to buy more time. So the fight is off. We might as well
yeah.
assume the fight is off in the ideal world. If Canelo has been doping, question I'm asking Idris is how long should the ban be?
Okay,
Because
so
see, for example, Luis Ortiz failed a drug test the other day, and it seemed like he was back fighting a couple weeks later or a few months later. Like
yeah,
Canelo is
but,
like a marquee name. How long should this ban be? Because we don't know how long he's been taking clenbuterol and other
yeah,
substances as
and
well.
and that's where the discrepancy comes. Just because how many times has he played with someone else's life? That's how we have to think about it. How many times has he played with? Let's look at the Amir Khan knockout. That could have been death. You know, quite literally, Amir Khan was laid out, man.
Yeah, he
And
was.
this is what I'm saying. If he was on PEDs then, which I assume he was, why wouldn't he have been? Um, he's been playing with his opponents' lives for a long time, and um, yeah, personally, I think they should just be life bans. You've been caught on drugs. You could have killed someone. Yeah, we don't want you in the sport. It should be that harsh. You could kill a man. You're going in. I wouldn't want. If I was fighting someone that was taking stuff to fight me, that they can end up killing me. I don't want that. No, he should be a life ban. That's my opinion. Life
The
ban
thing,
straight.
the thing is as well with Canelo, right? Like with clenbuterol, like as we kind of discussed before, Canelo's had historical weight issues. Clenbuterol, one of its effects is to help you strip weight off. It's not like he's sniffing lines of coke and coming out with world class performances that are, the substance is not linked to his body type, body shape, or what's happening with him. Like clenbuterol is clearly linked to what has been happening in Canelo's career. So for me, I totally agree. I think they need to be as harsh as anything. I think for this PD epidemic to stop or for the numbers to drop, they need to say lifetime bans. And then boxers will start to get in their head and think, okay, if I'm on the stuff, that's my career over. Ayo, what's your thoughts on the whole matter? What are you saying about this whole clenbuterol stuff? Because I know you're quite passionate about this as well.
I don't even know where to start with it, to be honest with you, because Canelo's obviously cheating. I think that's quite clear. There's a big fight on the line, which the boxing public want to see, and I don't think the slight majority doesn't want to be called off. But I think we have to let common sense and let bygones be bygones, and let's be fair. He needs to be banned. It's as simple as that. He needs to be banned. And if I was to answer the question that you gave Idris, that how long should the ban be? The maximum 2 years. The reason why is so it can teach him a lesson not to do it again. Mayweather's supposedly retired now, so you are the face of boxing. Okay, we can make an argument for Joshua, but you are pretty much the face of boxing. Mexico is a whole nation who's behind you, and yet you're there, taking drugs. No need. You understand? The fight, and the funny thing is that the one person, and you know what, I praise Idris so much because you sent some good videos in the group, and that Conte guy made a very, very good point in the video that you posted, saying that the one person who could blow this out of proportion is Golovkin, and he's not saying nothing. All he needs to say is that, hold on, this guy's failed the test. What's going to be done here? And then it's like they're forcing them to react. But because he's not saying nothing because of the money that he's potentially chucking away, do you know what I mean? It's like everyone's trying to play hush hush. It's being dealt with in a very funky way. If this was Povetkin or Ortiz, bam, straight away, yep, we decided bam. What's all this hearing on April the 10th? What's all of this extra hearing, extra this and result, and the meat is this, and mate, you took clenbuterol. We don't know how long you've been taking it for, but it's probably been for quite a long period of time. Ban the guy, regardless of who he is. Don't care if you're Mayweather, don't care if you're Joshua. If you take PEDs or you take any kind of performance enhancing drug, flip and ban the guy for the maximum amount of times that can teach them a valuable lesson. And that's all I've got to say on this, keeping it short and concise.
You know what? I don't even want to see the fight anymore. I don't know, and I'd like to hear what everyone else thinks.
And the thing is, yeah, what's the point exactly, Jay? What's the point of the fight even going on? Because let's say Canelo wins. Oh, he was on drugs. If Canelo loses, so it's not really good. It's not got the same.
It's not going to be the same impact.
It's not the same as as before. So you know what? Get the fight off, ban the guy, and you know what? Sod it.
Yeah, because if you remember when Ricky Hatton got positive for cocaine, they banned him. They stripped him for like 2 years, bro. He got the full whack of it. So why is it one rule for one and one rule for another?
Yeah, and
because you're a higher profile fighter than somebody else, that it doesn't apply to you. Nah, man, I'm with Ayo, mate. If you're mate, ban them for the 2 lives.
And we're coming off with the Fury thing as well. Fury's got banned for drugs as well.
Just imagine if Ortiz beat Wilder. He would have been in contention to unify the division, and you're going to have a drugs cheat who's been banned not once, not twice, but 3 times, failed a drug test, and my man's still got a license to fight. No, mate, that's not right. If you're banned, if you're a drugs cheat, you're banned. You face the consequences. That's it. You do the crime, you do the time. That's it. Simple.
But you guys are being lenient, man. I'm saying get a life ban, bro.
Well, yeah, even
that's what I'm
ban.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not.
When Ben Johnson beat Cole Lewis, they stripped him, brother. Within like a month, they stripped him. They said, "No, mate, you're tested positive. You're not having that gold medal. It's gone, bro. You had your one chance, you blew it. Your gold medal gets handed on to someone else."
But with athletics, I always say you could give them like a 2-year, 4-year ban. I wouldn't say a life ban, just because you're not physically harming anyone.
Yeah, if
you might just be taking a little bit.
It should be a life ban. Yeah, I agree, definitely. Yeah. You're putting another man's fate in your hands. People, I mean, there's boxers being killed like through brain hemorrhage on the brain, taking too much punishment. That's without PhDs. So, boy, if you can imagine if like a PhD and it's the same outcome. No, if you're banned, if you've been caught taking PhDs and you've won the fight, you're banned for life. Even if you didn't win the fight, you should ban them. If you're prepared to take that risk and jeopardize all what you've worked for, then, bro, there's got to be a harder sanction. Because everybody seems like, oh yeah, I can take PhD, I can get a 6-month ban, a year, maybe tops. I can come back for a heavyweight. I can come back for a title fight next year, as long as I stay in shape.
But this is the important thing. And Ayo, I'm glad that you reminded me. Remember when I sent the thing about Victor Conte? What's good when he talked about having the testing all year round. And this is what a lot of people don't seem to forget, is that because the testing is only done, let's say the testing is done vigorously during the lead up to the fight. Let's say you fight twice a year. That means you essentially have a good maybe 6. Let's say there's an 8-week training camp. So that means you have essentially got a 6 to 8 month period. If you're fighting 2 years, 2 fights a year, you've got a 6 to 8 month period where you can actually take all the drugs you want because you're not getting tested. It's out of competition. So they do in competition testing and do out of competition testing. And if you're not really like on the new scheme that they have already, where they do the 365 testing, when you're not fighting, you're not getting tested. So you can take anything and everything. So what Victor Conte said that was quite important was that what are these? You can test these guys while they're fighting and find nothing on them, but they've got all the benefits from all the PEDs for the last 6 to 8 months anyway. Do you get what I'm saying? So I think everyone, and I think it should just be a rule, if you have a professional boxing license, yeah, obviously there's a lot of money involved to have testers testing all these boxers all the time. But if you have a boxing license, if you are licensed to go and punch another man in the face legally, you should then be under a special law, which means you must be drug tested. And I think at the amateur levels, at the lower levels, you have to take yourself to the testing facilities to go get drug tested. And even though you might say, well, you could just time it so that you don't get tested, it just means you have to go test at a certain time. You've got to test at this particular time. So if it's in your country, you're going to this testing facility at this particular time on this particular date. You have your appointment, yeah? If you are ranked within the top 20, I don't even want to hear about the top 10. If you're ranked in the top 20, yeah, which means you could be entitled to become a mandatory or be what's it called, get a title shot and things like that. If you're in the top 20, you are on 365 testing. Testers could turn up and see you anytime they want. I think that should just be the law. Like that should just be the law. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I just think that there's too much risk involved in boxing. There's already guys getting hurt, like you said, Mike, through guys who are not taking PEDs. So if guys are taking PEDs, man, you have to be onto them, man. You got to be onto. If everyone in the sport was clean, come on, man, we'll know who the best is, really.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
yeah,
I agree on your point, Idris, about the random testing. I think it's the VADA, what's it called? The VADA Clean Boxing Program, random testing that's starting to catch some of these guys out. Obviously, we've seen Ortiz caught out now, obviously Canelo and stuff. But I think part of that Clean Boxing Program is they're doing out of competition random testing. Because to your point, if I'm a fighter and I basically know when I'm going to be fighting and I'm not signed up to a VADA testing program or an out of competition testing program, I can pretty much tailor my PED doping to my training camps, right? So come
yeah,
camp, because you almost know, like if you've been boxing for like a number of years, you almost know. I know that the testers say, oh, we turn up randomly, but you know when they're going to turn up. If you go and train in Big Bear up in the mountains, you know when they're coming up, innit? They're not just going to turn up on your doorstep. You'll be like, oh, surprise. You know when they're heading up to Big Bear, innit? So, like, the point I'm trying to make is you can tailor a doping program where you get the benefits out of, increased training, which is improving your strength and stuff. By the time the testers turn up, it's out of your system and you've got all the benefits already. Do you know what I mean? So, what I said, and I've said this before on previous podcasts, is if you're not signed up to the VADA Clean Boxing Program, to me, that's an admission of guilt. I don't know. And I guess obviously you mentioned Joshua's name earlier, legal disclaimer. But if you're not signed up, why would you not be signed up to an open drug testing program that tests you out of competition? There's no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse. So you're basically saying that you're not comfortable with it. And remember Pacquiao used to say, oh, he didn't like needles and stuff, which was
shut up, man.
which
Shut
was
up.
ridiculous. But yeah, it's just like there's absolutely no reason why any boxer out there shouldn't be on this clean boxing program. And I'm glad that the net is tightening and it's starting to catch some of these guys out. I mean, Canelo's now the biggest name that's been caught out, but I anticipate there's going to be a few more who are going to be caught out shortly. So yeah, totally agree with you. Mike, did you have any thoughts on this? Any other thoughts on the whole Canelo situation or the kind of testing stuff as well?
No, I mean, in the day, if he's been tested and he's been found guilty, then he should be stripped. I mean, like the comments was made earlier. You know what I mean? Now Mayweather's gone. He's probably like the biggest name in boxing, and that fight on May the 5th was meant to be like, yeah, the rematch to prove all doubters who's the best pound for pound. And now that he's been a bit, if he has or if he hasn't, he's been tarnished. He's been officiated with like 2 failed drugs tests and all this. I mean, at the end of the day, like they said before, how can your personal chef not know what's in that food when you're cooking for your man every single day? You're the one responsible for what his intake is. You should be more than anyone be checking that shit before he gets to it. So yeah, I just think, like I said, if he's been found, and he should just be banned. Anyone that takes them PhDs, ban them for life.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Mike, and I made that point as well previously, that it's either like, I see the situation on this Mexican meat excuse like 2 ways, right? Either his camp are so incompetent that they don't vet what comes into his camp and see what the champ consumes, or they do know what the champ consumes and they do know that the meat is contaminated that comes into camp, but they're prepared to allow their fighter to benefit. It's either one or the other, but both are rotten to the core. Do you know what I mean? Your camp's either incompetent and they're not vetting properly, or they are vetting properly, but they think, oh, well, that meat's contaminated. and it's got added clenbuterol for a bit of seasoning, so he will benefit from the
Yeah,
from the.
I read some articles on the build up to the AJ fight. They were talking about he's nutritionist and he's chef, and even his chef was giving obviously his trainer the routines, judging by what food he's preparing, obviously to make sure that he's going to be a lot lighter for this fight. So his chef knew exactly what he was eating, how much calories to be eating per day, what times of the day he needs to be eating, and what he needs to be eating to replace the fuel that he's burning in the gym. So they had to make the pattern, some of his patterns, training around meal times and certain foods for obviously to fuel his body for the training that he's got to have to do. So how can your chef not know what's going in your boy's system?
You know what I thought you were gonna say, Mike? I thought you were gonna say that AJ was seasoning his meat with clenbuterol.
Well, boy, it was definitely seasoning it with something, mate.
Well, I'm just saying comparisons on obviously different chefs. Obviously, like I said, I mean, being an ex-chef personally myself, you need to know what you're cooking. If you're feeding to somebody, you need to know what's going in that shit. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Exactly. And as I said, these athletes, they're paid millions of pounds.
Yeah.
They're well paid. You know, nutrition is a big part of, kind of strength and conditioning and, preparing an athlete. And if they're seriously turning around saying, oh, we didn't know this Mexican meat was contaminated. Clearly, if you're in Mexico and you're eating meat, there's a big chance the meat is contaminated. And if you know it's contaminated with clenbuterol, why are you allowing him to eat it?
Yeah, exactly.
You want him to benefit. So yeah, very, very shady all around. But Idris, completely agree with you on your points about lifetime bans. I think the sport should start to look at it because this PD thing is no joke. So that brings us to the end of the topics that we had on the agenda. Just gonna leave the floor open. I know that quite a few of the guys have dropped off because obviously they want to go and spend a bit of time with the family and stuff. But was there anything else, Idris, Mike, that you wanted to kind of raise before we sign out?
No, not really.
I think we covered most of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we covered it. So yeah, thanks guys for obviously jumping on board the podcast again. Much appreciated. As I said at the beginning, new viewers, please subscribe to the channel, and obviously give us a thumbs up just to help bring obviously build the brand and give us some more visibility. Follow us on Twitter at BusyBee Boxing and on Instagram once again at BusyBee Boxing, and we're out. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.